3, 2, 1.
¡Bienvenido a Colombia!
Welcome to Colombia. Okay, let's go. Alright, you heard it, guys. Welcome to Colombia. Today I want to talk about affirmations and also positive thinking in general, because I think in the self-improvement area there's like many people that talk about affirmations. Affirmations, you have to do them. The thing is, probably you have maybe done them yourself, like thinking positive and I'm good, I'm great, I'm confident, and you realize maybe for yourself, if you tested this life, your brain will tell you, okay, this is bullshit. No, you're not cool. No, you're not successful or whatever. The brain just thinks, it's bullshit what you tell yourself. Because the problem is, if we try to change our thoughts with new thoughts, aka affirmations, there's basically like a hopeless or like a pointless thing. Why? Because our thoughts are first of all endless, like one negative thoughts create another negative thought, and it's like endless and self-reinforcing. This is the first thing. And the second thing, where do our thoughts come from? We often think, okay, our thoughts create our emotions, but it's vice versa actually. If you want to have more information about this, I would recommend you to read David Hawkins' Letting Go. He speaks about this, and it also has been found out that 80% of the Western society, of the Western world, are living in the negative emotions like shame, guilt, apathy, greed, grief, anger, desire, all of those. Okay, but when we know this, when we know that, okay, the thoughts come from our emotion, then trying to think positive, when we try to be positive and try to have more positive emotions, it doesn't make sense to start with our thoughts and start with the affirmations. I'm positive. It's another thought and doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is to try to address this problem on the emotional level. The question is, okay, how do you do this? How do we address this thing on an emotional level? This is what I want to talk about today. All right, got a bit interrupted again, so maybe it's a bit darker now. So what I was saying, when we address this topic or this issue on the emotions and on the thoughts, we will realize that the emotion will disappear instantly. All the thousands of thoughts that we were reinforcing disappear instantly, and we have completely different thoughts. You will realize, of course, when you are sad, you have way different thoughts than, for example, when you're super angry. When you're angry, you like, think about, okay, I can maybe punch somebody or whatever. When you're sad, for example, it's more like towards the past. The grief of a loss, usually. Okay, so what is the solution? So how do we deal or handle our emotions? The solution is basically like the title of the book, letting go of our emotions. But how do we do that is the question, right? It's not like, for example, when we're angry, what do we do? Should we like just be angry, destroy things? No, this would not be letting go. This would be expressing an emotion. This only leads to letting out some of the energy of the emotion, but then repressing the rest of it again. So this has no effect at all. Let me give you a quick definition. It's not the official definition of the author, David Hawkins, but it's what I know, like a quintessence maybe. Let me just read what I wrote down, because I think this is more accurate. The most important thing is to first not let the emotion run you. You often have that, for example, with anger, that you're just so angry that you don't even think, you're not even yourself anymore, that the emotion just runs you. And we basically have to first like take an observer point, and we realize, okay, we are not the emotion, because often we think, we are the person with that emotion, but we have that emotion. So first thing is to separate, to observe the emotion, and to have the emotion or let the emotion run us. And if we have this observer spot and we realize, okay, we are not the emotion, now we have the possibility to let the emotion like run its course, to fully accept the emotion, not trying to resist the emotion. And then we will realize, okay, if you really accept the emotion, really, like not only just a bit, but there's literally zero resistance to the emotion will change to a higher emotion, like a higher state, a more lighter state, and you will feel better. At first you will not realize in that moment, because the emotion runs you so quickly or so hard, but you will often realize afterwards, okay, fuck, the emotion had me again, it wasn't me, but the emotion, next time I will try to let it go. And then will happen again, that emotion runs you. Alright, now we talked about letting go and what you basically should do with your emotion, what is the ideal way according to Dr. Hawkins. But what is the usual way? So maybe it is good to observe, okay, what are we usually actually doing, or 80% of the Western society is usually doing with the emotion. There are 4 things that we are usually handle our emotions with, and that are very counterproductive. The first 2, suppression and repression, which is basically to push the emotion as soon as it comes, push it down. We have it, for example, with grief. Often we don't want to feel grief or cry in front of people, and we are ashamed of this, so we push down the emotion. This is called suppression and repression. Suppression is when you do it consciously, like often with grief. Repression is when you do it unconsciously. The other thing is expression. We talked about this with anger, for example. We are angry and want to destroy something, or we confront somebody, or we maybe get aggressive and physical with somebody. This lets out like just a little bit of the energy behind the emotion, enough to then repress it again, so it doesn't really help. And the negative effect that this has, of course, when you're putting out negative emotions in the world and towards other people, usually they will not be able to handle those emotions themselves and not realize, okay, your emotional reaction has nothing to do with them. They think it's their fault and they get like offended by it and they put back negative emotions towards you. So it's just like a constant battle, like a fight, and the emotions get worse and worse and worse. And it's in general bad, like for the other person, for the relationship which maybe that you have. So the expression might not be the best solution. And the fourth one is escaping our emotion, trying to not feel our emotion. How do we do this? Usually maybe through YouTube. Certainly people do it through movies. They don't want to feel, they want to numb themselves, watch movies, alcohol, and drugs in general. Best example for me is, you saw it here on the channel when I was super depressed. Actually, I think it wasn't depression, but it was apathy, like one super low emotion where you feel hopeless. And I tried to escape that by ordering a lot of pizza. Fast food is another one, and starting to smoke cigars. Yeah, this was basically some mechanism to numb myself, to not feel all these negative emotions, and trying to escape the emotion. And of course, porn, jerking off, sex, all of those things are also ways to escape our emotion. So now when you, for example, recognize yourself, oh, I'm escaping right now, or I'm also suppressing, you can feel also oppressing if you're like very aware, but especially expressing and escaping, you can be aware of and you can see it easily now with the information. Maybe it's better to think, okay, stop and think, hey, I'm managing my emotions in a bad way right now. Maybe it's better to try to let go of the emotion. Don't resist, experience the emotion, let it run its course, not trying to change it, and then it will lose its energy and be gone. Another important thing that I have to add here is just that when we let the emotion go once, it doesn't mean that we will never feel that emotion, that negative emotion again, because all of the suppression, the repression that we had over the years, this is also proven, by the way, the emotion still is inside of our body. This is basically why trauma exists. And like, for example, when you talk to a traumatized person, I truly believe that most of the people, again, 80% of Western society is in the negative emotions. Almost all of us has some way of trauma, something like that happened to us in our childhood. And you see that the emotion is still inside of you. You can prove it for yourself or prove it in the real world by just when you say something to a person and it triggers him because of his childhood, maybe, or because something happened in the class, whatever. Sometimes this person starts to cry, or sometimes this person starts to get extremely angry because it's something that triggers him, triggers the past. And this is because the emotion was repressed and the emotion is still inside of that person. This is important information because we have to know, okay, let go of the emotion. So there's less of the emotion inside of us right now. When we continue doing this again and again and again, this is really a long process. I'm doing this for years now and there's still a long way to go for me. But I got way better than I was at the beginning. You realize for yourself you are in general more positive, not that many negative thoughts. You have more belief in yourself, because what is the opposite of belief is fear. Fear is basically believing in something negative, that something negative will happen. Fear is always towards the future. And I also realize I'm more self-confident, more self-esteem, more self-respect. I believe more in myself because all of these negative thoughts, negative voices inside of my head, you also get rid of those by doing this, by letting go of the emotion, getting to a better emotion, and thereby having better thoughts. We are at the end of this video, and I hope this information or insight that I wanted to give here was useful to you about positive thinking. I hope that you will focus more on the emotion and try to handle it like I showed it. Maybe you have your own way of handling it. I think this is like the more proven way that I shared here. I think we have to realize that affirmations are basically just quick fixes that fixes nothing. That like handling our emotion, learning to deal with our emotion, this is the long way, but that's actually the way that works. I've done it for myself and I know it works. Hope this video was good for you, was useful for you, especially if you have maybe problems with mental health. Let's work on our mental health and our emotion, and let's see each other maybe in the next video. Thanks for watching.
Los primeros alemanes que vienen a casa.
Ah, sí?
Sí, porque...
To be honest, this was like the first time that this happened to me. I saw this in other YouTube videos before that, like, the people come. Of course, they were children, and it's like, okay, you're new. And yeah, it's cool because they were all positive, sharing something positive, and it was like a nice interaction. So pretty cool, a really cool experience.